think about moving to Sicily or even just traveling around the island, they always think of Sicily as a whole. But honestly, after living here, we have realized that this island almost seems divided into two completely different worlds.
Hi, if you don't know us, we are Lucas and Anya, and this is our channel Spark of Sicily. We share our life and experience in Sicily unfiltered.
In this video, we will talk about living in West Coast versus the East Coast. But we are not just talking about the geographical location. We are talking about lifestyle, atmosphere, and the general feeling of the place. So, for the sake of this video, when we mean West Coast, we talk about everything starting from Shaka, going all the way through Palermo up until Messina. When we say East Coast, we mean everything from Agrigento down through Catania up until Taormina. Before you say anything, yes, we do know that Taormina deserves its own special category by now.
In this video, we will compare number 1, general feeling and history, number 2, nature, weather, and natural risks, number 3, industrial differences, number 4, expats and international feeling, number 5, food and wine, number 6, properties and value what you can get them, and number 7, why we personally chose Palermo side.
Number one, general feeling with a teeny tiny bit of history. The West feels more spread out, slower in life, and a little more local. East is denser, more dramatic, and life has generally developed around bigger cities just because they have more of them. But let's start with the West. Once we have left Palermo or Trapani, life slows down significantly. You have smaller towns, fishing villages, countryside, quite a few gaps in between the towns. And honestly, in my opinion, that is part of the magic. Because even in the peak of tourism season here, you can find little spots in nature, tiny hidden beaches where you can feel like this paradise honestly is all your own.
Exactly, the West feels less performative in a way that it adapts less for tourists. It is in a good and in a bad way. Good part about this is that you really can get here that authentic Sicilian atmosphere, the slower rhythm, the routines, the towns that feel that they exist for locals, not only for tourists.
The bad part of it, you get the authentic Sicilian feeling with all of its magic, meaning that they probably will not suddenly change working hours, opening times, or the general rhythm of life just because tourists have arrived. Meanwhile, the east side has historically received much more international tourism, especially around places like Taormina and Siracusa. So overall, it feels a bit more flexible and they have adapted around international visitors and tourism life.
The Catania side feels like there is always another major place nearby. Siracusa, Noto, Modica, Ragusa. It feels more connected, more active, and much more intense. The East is famous for its bigger Baroque cities, Etna in the background, more tourism energy, more polished famous places.
That is because East had a stronger Greek influence, major ancient cities, and trade routes. That helps to explain why Siracusa, Catania, Taormina, and the whole southeast side in general feels more historically grand. While the West had stronger Arab influence, especially visible in food, agriculture, fishing culture, couscous, tuna, you name it. So, number two, nature, weather, and what you have to count with if you choose to live in Sicily. So, the West Coast is more open, a little more dry, but please don't get me wrong, it still gets very humid in winter. It's also windier and a little colder, both in summer and winter. Obviously, that's great for you in summer, winter, but I'm not so great, maybe. But I mean, slightly. We are talking about a few degrees here. The east is more dramatic, naturally. They have Mount Etna. That means that you have snow covered mountain, beautiful volcano, and down you can stand in your long sleeves and pick lemons. So you have to count with a little more dramatic change in temperature. Also, you are a little more exposed to environmental impact. That is because the east is more exposed, because of Etna, obviously, tectonic activity, the meeting zone between the African and Eurasian plates, mountainous terrain and humid air coming from the Ionian Sea. And all of that creates much stronger weather and environmental reasons overall. So, stronger storms, flash floods, earthquakes, and of course, the volcanic activity of the Etna herself. The West has fewer of those risks overall, but it is generally windier and drier, and you get quite a few huge wave days both in summer and in winter.
Of course, we are not saying that the eastern side lives in some constant natural disaster movie. These are simply environmental risks that exist there a bit more because of the geography, and honestly, this winter was quite intense all across Europe in general. The western side also gets storms, strong winds, and huge waves sometimes, especially during the winter. It's just that the eastern side is generally a bit more exposed to the stronger environmental reactions overall. And now let's get to number 3, industrial difference. The eastern side historically developed much more infrastructure and industry overall, especially in places like Catania, Augusta, Priolo, and Siracusa. You have large ports there, petrochemical industry, industrial zones, and generally much larger economic activity. And honestly, this sometimes surprises foreigners because many people imagine Sicily as only beaches, old towns, and fishing villages. The eastern side also often feels more built up and commercially developed overall, with bigger urban areas and more visible business activity.
Meanwhile, the west side still feels much more connected to agriculture, fishing culture, or tourism. Of course, Palermo here is the big exception because it is the capital, so you get your chaotic feeling as you see from a lot of our videos, the urban feeling, and economically, it is, of course, very important for the island overall. But outside Palermo, the west side generally feels less industrialized and a bit slower economically, if I dare say. Termini Imerese is an interesting exception here because historically it was much more industrial because of Fiat, but now it is not functioning anymore and therefore it does not kind of influence the whole atmosphere around the west side in general, the same way as the industrial zones around Augusta and Priolo influence still the eastern side and the whole atmosphere there. So, number 4, expats and international feeling.
East is more internationally known for longer. Again, Siracusa, Catania, Noto, Ragusa, Modica. There is in general more English spoken around, more tourism infrastructure, more luxury tourism, and many more foreign buyers.
The West still feels a little more Sicilian first, obviously with exceptions of Palermo and Trapani, and Cefalù in summer is very international. But most of the smaller towns around still feel very local, though we do see a slight change lately, especially around Castellammare del Golfo or Terrasini. We see more and more foreigners moving into these areas here as well.
Sicily has been seeing massive tourism growth in recent years, with more international flights, more foreign visitors, and much more international attention overall. And 2024 into 2025 has been one of the strongest periods for tourism on the island in decades.
Number 5, and my personal favorite, food and wine. So, the West Side is actually very influenced by Arab and North African cultures, especially around Trapani province. And you notice it in a lot of dishes, for example, the couscous, seafood, tuna, and sardines. The whole western coast feels much more tied to fishing culture overall. And Trapani is also famous for pesto alla trapanese, which is a Sicilian version of pesto made with tomatoes, almonds, basil, and olive oil, rather than the classic pesto we all know and love. And around Trapani and Marcello, you also have the same famous salt pans, where sea salt has been traditionally produced for centuries. And those areas in general are symbols of Western Sicily and honestly look incredible in sunset. Now, we definitely have to talk about wine if we talk about the west side of Sicily, because it is heavily tied to wine production as well. Marsala wine is probably the most famous internationally, But areas like Trapani province and Menfi are also huge wine producing areas with many historic wineries. And the western side generally feels more connected to traditional winemaking, though they do have some larger scale productions as well.
Meanwhile, the eastern side is much more known for intense flavors and specialty products overall. You have almonds around Noto, blood oranges around Catania, seafood around Siracusa, and Modica chocolate, which is famous for its older, grainy texture and Spanish influence. Catania also has a huge street food culture, and yes, horse meat is generally very common there, which usually surprises foreigners quite a bit. Now let's talk about wine. The eastern side became internationally famous mainly because of Etna wines. The volcanic soil around Etna creates very specific mineral flavors, and in recent years, Etna wines became extremely fashionable internationally, especially among the wine enthusiasts. But honestly, for me, the real winner is still Nero di Avola. That wine is strongly associated with southeastern side of Sicily, especially around areas like Avola and Noto, and it's probably one of the most recognizable Sicilian wines internationally.
All right, number six, property. And you already know that this is Lucas's cup of tea.
So the eastern side has been much more discovered internationally. The places like Catania, Taormina, there are lots of foreign buyers that are buying second holiday homes or investment properties. And honestly, you can feel it in prices as well. There is more competition, more tourism pressure in certain areas, and fewer genuine hidden gems that there used to be. That does not mean that there are no good deals anymore, but you definitely feel that many of these places are already on the map internationally. Meanwhile, on the western side, we still regularly discover towns where it feels like international buyers haven't fully arrived yet. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why this site still can offer really good value for money in many areas. You also get much more variety overall. You can have coastal towns, countryside houses, mountain views, beaches, Palermo access, airport access, and still find places that feel relatively undiscovered internationally. And for lifestyle buyers, especially, we personally feel that the western side still offers more opportunities to find that slower Sicilian life people often imagine when moving here.
All right, so last but not least, why we personally chose West. As you know, there are many places in the East that we absolutely love. My personal favorite is Ragusa. For Lucas, I think it's still Modica,
It's
right?
definitely Modica,
It's
yes.
Modica. And of course, Mount Etna is the absolute star of the show there.
Beautiful.
But we chose West because of our lifestyle needs. We are, I think, generally a little calmer people and not city people at all. I mean, we love to visit them, but then come home to our peace and quiet. So, life in a smaller town here just made sense for us personally. Also, we are big swimmers, and so is our dog. So, it really helps that you have a lot of sandy, long, beautiful, gorgeous beaches that are not so busy.
And if you want, you can be in 25 minutes in Palermo. So if you really
Yeah.
desire the big city, it's not a problem
Yeah.
at all.
With all of its chaos, and you have seen it in our videos, the beautiful chaos and absolute wonder that is Palermo. However, as much as I love it, I am very grateful that I get to experience it and then drive home to my peace and quiet. But we also know that every single person is so passionate about their favorite place in Sicily. So we would absolutely love to hear from you in the comments which place in Sicily has stolen your heart.
Everybody has its favorite. Come on,
Yeah.
guys. We want to know.
You know our favorite, it is Terrasini with a slight touch of Palermo as well. Okay, but that's the end of our video. I hope it was helpful. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It genuinely helps us so much more than you might think. And we are so, so grateful for all the subscribers we already have. You can't imagine how much it means to us because it also gives us the opportunity to live on this absolute paradise of an island and continue creating more and more content for you.
And most importantly, if you haven't been to Sicily, come. The summer is coming, so please don't hesitate. Book your flight ticket and come here.
Yes, it is gorgeous, it's fantastic, and as you saw in this video, food to die for. But besides that, we post new videos from Sicily every single Thursday, and we will see you in the next one. Ciao!